Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone for the 2nd of February 2014. My friends, I'll keep this introduction brief because I'm just getting over a chest infection. As you can hear, I'm not firing on all cylinders today. Nevertheless, I'm excited to bring you this episode of the show. I'm going to be interviewing a dear old friend of mine, the Jelly Bean Lady, Loretta Marron. She's known as the Jelly Bean Lady because, well, you'll hear why coming up in the interview. But wow, what wonderful news for science and reason in Australia. Loretta Marron, who's been a long-time campaigner against health fraud and quackery, was on Australia Day, the 26th of January, awarded one of our nation's highest honours, the Order of Australia, for her work in uncovering quackery, busting the quacks and so on. Wonderful news. Interview with Loretta Marron OAM, as she's now known, coming up at the top of the show. Following that, as ever, it's a week in science from the Royal Institution of Australia, www.riaus.org.au. One day I'll get down there, Paul Willis. One day I'll come down to visit you guys at the Royal Institution of Australia. Looking forward to that. And to round off the show, lots more interviews from Maynard Spooky Action at the National Convention held last year in Canberra. In fact, this is the wrap-up, the last series of interviews from Maynard from the convention. Maynard chats to a PhD in Earth Sciences, some more Agent Smiths, mysterious, Mike McRae talking about science and alternative medicine, and then a sort of a grab bag of people as they leave the convention and their thoughts on the whole weekend. And I guess it's my last opportunity to really thank Maynard for the wonderful work, tireless work he did for all of us at the National Convention with his reports going on now for months. Fantastic work, Maynard, and thank you to all those people who helped Maynard make the convention. Well, while I go downstairs and look for some soothing ginger tea for my poor old vocal cords, I'll let you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. Folks, I'm a little bit under the weather, as you can hear, just getting over some sort of little bug or virus, or I don't know what I've got. I could try many things. I could try lots of bed rest and water and just taking it easy, or I could try, I don't know, say maybe some magnetic therapy to help me beat my ills. But you know what? I know a certain lady who would probably advise me not to do it, and I'm very pleased and excited to have on the line, all the way from sunny Queensland, Loretta Marron. Hello.
Hello, how are you? Not too good, I hear.
Not too good, but you know what? I'm so pleased to talk with you because, as the world knows now, as of Australia Day, you've been awarded one of our country's highest awards, which is the Order of Australia. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I guess you're just one of the people congratulating me. I'm just so proud to have received this award. But what I'm getting is congratulations from, like, Nobel laureate, Professor Barry Marshall, the man who worked out what caused ulcers, the CEO of the Cancer Council, that's Professor Ian Olver. I've got the doctors who treated my cancer. I've got family, friends, academic scientists all over the world, and Australia as well, lots of them congratulating me. I'm getting a lot of emails. It's just, it's wonderful, yes.
Well, I hope it was a wonderful surprise when you found out.
Well, when I first got the letter, I read the first two lines, and I swear the rest got jumbled. I just couldn't read on. And I had to hand it over to my husband and say, "What does it say?" He said, "You've got an Order of Australia medal." And I said, "Are you sure? Because I can't read it." And the next day I sat there, one word at a time, and I thought, wow, there's a good chance I've got that. and then you have to keep quiet. That was September, so I've had to keep my lips buttoned since then. There's a lot more to the process than that. But in effect, that's I knew then, and so I thought, well, I can't celebrate, I can't tell anyone until Australia Day, but I can guarantee there's been a few champagne corks flying, and the party isn't over yet.
You are absolutely right. In fact, the skeptics here in Sydney will certainly be having a glass of champagne in your honour, because we really think of you as one of our own. You've been Skeptic of the Year on your own merits twice, and as part of the Friends of Science and Medicine yet again, which is a feat nobody else has even come close to matching. But it all really started with you and your association with the skeptics over 10 years ago when you were looking into magnetic therapy.
Well, that's right. I had seen it advertised on the television so many times, and a good friend of mine had bought one, and he was an electrician, and I had a bit of a go at him, and I thought, I'm no better than the alternative therapists unless I prove to him that they don't work. So that was a challenge. I thought, how can I do that? So I looked around Australia, who could I talk to? And I thought, well, I'll contact the skeptics, whoever they are. And I got hold of the past president, Barry Williams, and he couldn't have been more helpful. Now, what that did for me is make me realise that if I needed any help and advice, the phone was there. I could just pick it up and ring. And to be honest, you guys haven't got rid of me since.
No.
I'm still doing it.
No, we're very pleased that you're still there. Well, yes, and you've spoken at many Australian Skeptics Convention, and you're a great speaker, and you've even spoken in New Zealand, I see.
Oh, yeah, they're a wonderful group over there, and they have really made me feel welcome as well. It's the second time I've spoken there, and they're really not that far away when you think about it. But it's a good opportunity to get the message across and show them what we're doing in our country, because they've got serious problems there as well. And we do need, the skeptics around the world do need to, look after each other and share what we know and what we can do.
Now, you're famous, of course, maybe not so much now, but in the past you had the moniker of the jelly bean lady, and there's a wonderful picture of you lying down on a bed of jelly beans with a jelly bean wrapped around your head. What was the whole idea of that?
Well, I was asked, because of the magnetic therapy, right, that had been my one thing that was really annoying me, and that was pre-cancer. Now, so I put things down when I got the cancer because, that takes over your life. But then I came back and I realised after I'd been diagnosed that cancer patients were being targeted. And I thought, somebody should do something about this. And I thought, well, it may as well be me. And so I went to write a little brochure on complementary and alternative medicine. And I thought, and other things, and how to get good advice on everything. And the complementary and alternative medicine section, I thought, I know nothing about this. Well, I did two things. One is I bought the Skeptics DVD of all your articles for the last 20 years. I printed out everything on complementary and alternative medicine. Most of it was written by Dr. Richard Gordon.
Right, yes, of course.
And a couple of days later, I pretty well had a good handle on it. Because one thing about alternative medicine, it doesn't change. They have new therapies created every couple of weeks, but the basics are the same. So first of all, I got my education there, and then I went to the Adverse Medicines Events hotline, and I rang them up and I said, I need help with understanding the risks and benefits of complementary medicines in particular, because people are eating them. And a woman by the name of Geraldine Moses answered the phone, and she said, well, what do you know about complementary medicines? And I said, nothing. I refer everybody to the Skeptics Dictionary.
Yes. And
she couldn't have been more helpful. She's just wonderful. She still is helping, and I think she's spoken at a few conferences. So, and that's where it started with that and the skeptics and the people that have helped me.
Yes, Geraldine Moses, I had the pleasure of meeting her once or twice, I think, in Brisbane around about the year 2001, or is it 2002, when the Great Skeptic CD was launched, the CD you're referring to. Interesting, things have progressed so much now in computer terms that that's sort of a little bit obsolete, and all the back issues of the Skeptic magazine are now at the website, which is nice and handy for everybody. But personally, I'm so pleased that you got good use out of that CD, because many years ago I was the one who sat down and put that all together. So I get a little a warm glow, Loretta, knowing that I've helped you.
Well, the one thing is, you asked me about the magnetic business. All right, well, Geraldine asked me, well, what was my, area of interest? And I said magnetic therapy. So she then dobbed me into Channel 9. She said, would you like to go on television with Channel 9 to talk about magnetic therapy? And of course, I said yes. And then, of course, I hung up and I thought, I don't look like a scientist. And I thought, okay. And in line with the skeptics, which is what the skeptics love, is they love to have a good laugh, right? You take the mickey out of people.
Yeah.
So I decided, I copied a note from the local naturopath, which said, that the naturopath is in, blah, blah, no appointment necessary. But I made it, the jelly bean lady is in. So I did a whole brochure on it, a whole stand on that, put it out front of the house. I then put myself on, I bought a jelly bean apron from a child's store, put the jelly bean stuff on my head, earrings, jewellery, set up a whole display of jelly bean therapy, acupressure bracelets, which was a jelly bean stuck in a ribbon, and detox patches, which is gauze with a jelly bean in, and then the pain relief jewellery. And then I had even herbal tea, which was jelly bean stuck on a kebab stick. And Channel 9 turned up, and they took one look at me, and they said, what's your story? And I could see they all looked a bit pale. And I'd bought a meter that measures magnetism.
Oh, yeah.
And I had a little magnetic underlay and a little jelly bean underlay, all covered up in sheepskin. And I said, here's the meter, here's how it works. Which one's got the magnets and which one's got the jelly beans? And they said, it reads 0. And I said, yes. I said, you just get a tiny distance, less than a centimetre above a magnet, there's no field. So what I say to people is, grab a fridge magnet and try it. And it costs you nothing, and see if it works for you. And they just loved it, and that was the start of me being the jelly bean lady. And that was also got me into New Idea magazine as the Candy Crusader, got me onto 4BC radio for over a year. Just people love it when you're prepared to put your head out there. Might get whacked a few times, but they remembered you. I was even on Ingrid Tall's show, Your Health show in Brisbane, and I turned up and I had all these pom-poms stuck on my shirt. I mean, my idea of sewing is with glue. So I had all these little brightly things, and I had the outfit on, and she said, you're great for television, and I got a gig on there as well. And I thought if I'd looked like a scientist, I would have been unemployed very quickly.
That's
so
wonderful.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and that started with the magnets.
Well, it's interesting because, when I think back to roughly 10 years ago, around that era, I remember seeing on advertorial televisions and magazines magnetic underlays and magnetic therapy and magnetic this and that. It was a fad at the time. It was very popular, but you don't see it anymore. Well, scarcely ever. So I think that's
well, I hope you don't see it at all. It shouldn't be there. But you will see them, stacked floor to ceiling at your local pharmacy, particularly if they're anywhere near a retirement village. So there's still issues there. Because their labelling is atrocious on them, it still makes the claims on the labelling. Yeah. But all you and I can do as consumers is try to get rid of the advertising. There's some pretty strong advertising laws out there.
Well, I think
it's not just that. Yeah, I hope it will encourage my OAM. There's a lot of people who've turned their backs on evidence-based medicine. But, I mean, we owe so much to researchers and doctors. I mean, there's a dramatic improvement in survival rates for cancer. I think this month they declared India polio-free.
Yes, indeed.
And that's all science and evidence-based medicine. It's terrific.
Yep, absolutely. No magnetic therapy or homeopathy or witchcraft involved. That's all good old science-based medicine at work, doing what it does best. And it's interesting you should mention the pharmacies, because Australian skeptics for a long time have had a big issue with the pharmacies selling no end of nonsense.
And not just that, you can go to my local pharmacy and you get 15 minutes free iridology.
Oh, lucky you.
Yes, that's right. In order to diagnose me with health conditions and miss the obvious ones. And it just isn't right, and that's their way of getting around it. And they're being told to clear their shelves. The money's in all the complementary medicines. I mean, CAM, or complementary and alternative medicine, is a $4 billion industry, and most of it relies on the placebo effect. And some of it's quite dangerous. And it often targets, the most vulnerable people, the cancer patients, seniors, and increasingly babies and children. And I hope that my award will open more doors for me to challenge the poor regulation and make me more difficult to ignore.
Oh, I'm sure it absolutely will. Now, you are in very fine company indeed with the Friends of Science and Medicine. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about that and how that's going?
Oh, that's going really well. And I do have a lot to thank the Skeptics for as well. We launched in December 2011, so we're just over 2 years old. We have over 1,000 supporters now, including Nobel Prize winners, a couple of Australian of the Year, I think about 3, and over 60 recipients of medals like myself, or over 61 now. And when we started, of course, we're self-funded, so it meant that we all put $125 in to pay for the postage and the post office box. And the Skeptics willingly gave us a grant to get us off the ground. We're trying to promote a message of good science and medicine, and that's a very important message because of the industry we're fighting. So the support we continue to have from the Skeptics is greatly appreciated.
Yes, and we think it's a wonderful thing that you're doing, and indeed one of our own Joe Benamu is certainly involved with the Friends of Science and Medicine, and people
yes, we've stolen her. We have stolen her.
You have stolen her.
Total treasure.
She is a treasure. A wonderful woman, but listeners can find out more about the Friends of Science and Medicine at scienceinmedicine.org.au. And Loretta, that's certainly coming under a lot of attack from certain quarters.
Well, it certainly is, and that actually shows that we're making a difference, and that's what we're trying to do, is challenge this industry. And they're feeling a bit threatened, but they're very well funded. I mean, some of them set up offices in Canberra so they can lobby the government. And that's very difficult for us to say to the government. There's a whole industry. There's a lot of people employed. It's projected to be one of the biggest growth employment industries for this year.
Yeah.
And I say most of it is just placebo. Not all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's very sad. I will mention that this week is quite special for me, not just for my award, but I celebrate 10 years exactly to my last week of treatment for radiotherapy. So it's been quite a roller coaster ride since then.
It's been quite 10 years, yes.
Yeah, so I've just, 2nd of February was my last treatment, and that's just in a few days from now. So I've had a most amazing decade, that's for sure. And the Skeptics have been right in there. But yes, I hope people listening to this will have a look at the Friends of Science and Medicine website, have a look at our aims and commitments, and we'd love you to join us. All you have to do is say that you agree with them, and welcome on board.
Isn't it interesting that there you were one day getting this diagnosis of cancer, and everybody knows it's a life-changing thing for anybody who gets this diagnosis, but how could you possibly imagine it would change your life in such an unexpected way, and to top it all off, you receive an Order of Australia? That's quite a story.
That's right. Yes, someone said to me, Loretta, you're the only one that can make lemonade out of a lemon. That's a good way of putting it. But it has been good looking back at the last decade of all the people that have helped me along the way, just little things that they've done, and big things that they've done as well. I mean, my neighbour that silk screened my T-shirts with the Jelly Bean Lady on for the conference, the first conference I went to with the Skeptics, and the advice I've been given, the support I've been given, it's just been tremendous. And the opportunities the Skeptics have given me to go and talk about my work, and even more recently about the Friends of Science and Medicine, it all matters. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, Loretta. It matters. It's a never-ending battle, as we know. It's a never-ending battle, but I think you should rightly now consider yourself one of the generals.
Thank you.
Loretta Marron, or as we love to know you as the Jelly Bean Lady, OAM, a delight to talk with you.
We'll talk to you soon.
Need some skeptic-y goodness that you can hand to someone who doesn't listen to podcasts? Or maybe you just need a good book of short skeptical snippets to put in your guest bathroom at home, or on the lobby table at work. It's true, we live in a modern dark age. Faith in pseudoscience is rampant, and belief in the supernatural permeates society at every level. Critical thinking is key to understanding what is truly useful and what merely distracts from progress and development. This book gives you the tools to sort the solid from the silly and answer such questions as, do military dolphins actually attack and kill divers? Who was Jack the Ripper? Can zombie powder actually turn you into a mindless slave? Was an amputee miraculously healed in the 1600s? What is truly known about Amelia Earhart's fate? Does scientific evidence prove the existence of the Yeti? Skeptoid 5, Massacres, Monsters, and Miracles by Brian Dunning. Get yours today from Amazon or skeptoid.com/books. Skeptoid 5, Massacres, Monsters, and Miracles.
Welcome to A Week in Science from RiAus, bringing you the science you need to know. You may have heard about 3D printing, the technology that allows you to make almost anything so long as you can design it on a computer. But get ready, today we're talking about the next big advance, 4D printing. 3D printing is pretty amazing. As we said, you can print out almost any shape you can think of, as long as you can design it on a computer. A printer prints out either metal, plastic, or many other substances into three-dimensional shapes by laying layer upon layer. However, one limitation is that you still need to assemble 3D printed parts into a more complex structure. What if we said the next big development, called 4D printing, was to create shapes that can actually assemble themselves into their final three-dimensional structure? That's what researchers are working on now, to create printable materials and structures which, when activated, fold themselves into a predetermined shape. This activation could be water, electricity, heat, really anything. These structures are made by combining plastic and smart memory material, which can morph into different shapes. One of the most obvious applications of this is to create structures which are flat or small, so they can be shipped easily and then be activated into their functional shape once on location. Could this be the end of trying to assemble fiddly flat-pack furniture? Man, I hope so. Objects could also be made which have a different structure in different conditions, meaning one object could have several different uses. Structures could also react to their surroundings to change shape and optimize their effectiveness. How cool is that? And now, here's 4 fast facts about 4D printing. 4D printing was revealed to the world in a TED Talk by MIT researcher Skylar Tibbetts. We recommend checking it out. The shapes that the structures convert into are determined during the design stage, so every step of the conversion from one shape to the other is controllable. One of the other interesting applications for this technology is in medicine, where molecules can react and transform into functional types when they reach a particular part of the body. And one of the largest self-folding structures we've seen is this 50-foot-long strand, but this technology will be scaled up even further in the future. Want to find out more about 4D printing? Check out our website, www.riaus.org.au, where we have some links. You can also follow us on Twitter @RiAus and like us on Facebook. We'll see you right here next week.
Hi, I'm Finn. And I'm Rebecca. And we're the Skepticons. Skepticons is an Irish podcast by the Dublin Skeptics Society. It takes a conversational, irreverent look at science, news and skeptical topics from an Irish perspective. You can find us at www.theskepticons.com. You're always spirit with a strong finding.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Hey, no. I want to talk to an actual scientist here. We've got someone who spent a lot more time at university than I did. In fact, I was only there for the day. What have you got your degree in?
I have a PhD in geography.
And you said you're working in the earth sciences. Can we just move over this way a little bit, because there's screaming children coming from the Discovery Centre downstairs there. And do you think a lot of people are drawn to earth sciences, or it's just something you fall into?
I think it's a naturally compelling field because being able to have the tools to describe our environment and our world around us is intrinsically important to all of us. It's very exciting.
And what is the actual topic you're dealing with day to day at the moment?
So I use satellites that are orbiting around the Earth to measure processes on the Earth's surface, such as the quality of water and the quality of freshwater habitat.
And how many at any given time would you work with in a day? How many satellites are you keeping an eye on that do this?
There are a couple of key satellites that measure the range of the electromagnetic spectrum that we can use to measure water quality. The Landsat 8 sensor was recently launched by NASA last year, and that's been successfully orbiting and is bringing in a whole host of new information, and everyone's very excited about analyzing that data.
I understand they would be. Every once in a while something goes wrong and a satellite gets lost or it goes off on launch. Have you ever been involved in any one of those ones? You're going, oh, there goes all that work I was going to do.
Unfortunately, satellites have a life expectancy, and usually they exceed them, which is very good for the scientific community. But when a satellite does go down and you lose that data stream, it can be very impactful. The Landsat sensor that I was telling you about earlier, the series of those sensors have been in orbit longer than any other remote sensing sensor up there since the late 1970s. So it provides the longest long-term record of satellite observations that we have, which is very important for quantifying global environmental change and tracking the environment's response to climate change.
How much longer do they expect it to be active for? Can you guarantee much in the future with it, considering it's been there so long?
Well, there have actually been a number of Landsat sensors. So the recent one is Landsat 8. So Landsat 7 and Landsat 5 were orbiting for about a decade before that. And the Landsat 5 sensor was a real trooper, and it finally failed last year. And the Landsat 7 sensor has a flaw that retrieves incomplete data. So the community was very upset at having a disruption in one of the longest-term environmental records that we have in the current era. So when Landsat 8 successfully made it into launch, everybody was very happy.
So you're collecting this huge, big data set. What is the big challenge for having like a huge amount of raw data like that, with processing it and getting it together? What is the big challenge on a day-to-day basis?
Well, the Geoscience Australia here has just reprocessed all of the historic data from the Landsat sensor, and it represents over a petabyte of data. So as you can imagine, the data volumes...
That's an enormous USB stick.
It is an enormous USB stick that's called the National Computing Infrastructure.
Oh, okay. That is just incredible. And how much gets added to it each time you get a download dump from the satellite?
Well, Australia has a downlink for the Landsat sensor here in the continent, so they're constantly communicating and transmitting that data. So it's delivered to us pretty close to near real time, which allows us to do quite a lot of interesting environmental science, especially because we can exploit that historic record, which makes our understanding of process much more valuable than just an instantaneous measurement.
So as an actual science who has an actual scientist with an actual degree, what pseudoscience gets your goat the most? What's the one that makes you most... Oh, I don't know.
I think the one that maybe hits closest to home for me is climate denial. As someone who's actively researching the effects and the impacts of climate change, and we have observed them, it's very hard to have someone tell you that climate change isn't happening or doesn't exist or it's not going to result in many changes to our environment.
Have you been directly accused of fiddling the books yourself?
I have, and my response to that is if I wanted to be rich and famous, I wouldn't have become a scientist.
Yes. Yeah, look, if there was some kind of payoff going on, it wouldn't be from doing this.
No, it certainly isn't, I can tell you that.
Now, what are you looking forward to here on the last afternoon of the conference, on Sunday afternoon? Any special talk you're looking forward to?
I'm very interested in the kind of wrap-up discussions about where the skeptical community is going. And I hope to see maybe some greater outreach from the skeptical community. It's very easy to sit in a group and criticize conspiracy theorists, but I think that we need to try and reach past that and bring in at least those people who are open to compelling argument.
Well, enjoy the rest of your conference.
Thank you.
And I have yet two more Agent Smiths here. What's your middle name, Agent Smith?
Middle name is Corin.
And you are?
Greg.
Now, you're both very snappily dressed here, as you have been all weekend. Now, normally there's some sort of incident, but since PC Myers isn't attending today, we haven't actually got an incident yet. Are you planning on having one before we finish by end of tonight?
We could probably manufacture something, but we're hoping that nothing happens.
That sounds like you've got a conspiracy in mind there. Now, what about you? Has anything happened on your watch?
Oh, we can't really talk about what's happened.
No. Okay, I guess you can't really. Well, look, let's get straight into the controversy.
The fact that you can't see anything that's happened is indication of how well we've been good at making sure nothing's happened.
I have been asking people about I've been trying to get a controversy going, trying to get an incident going by mentioning and asking people who is the unpopular doctor, because everyone has their favourite doctor, but who's the one you think is least popular? Now, I must point out we aren't bagging the person or the actor, it's just their work in Doctor Who we think isn't as good as some of the other ones. Have you got a particular feeling about this?
I'm completely Doctor Who agnostic.
Wow, okay. So does that mean you, so when people say Star Trek or Doctor Who, you just don't get involved at all?
Pretty much. I might as well say Christianity or Islam.
So you'd be a Buck Rogers in the 25th century kind of guy then, is that what you are?
Oh, Buck Rogers, now you're taking me back.
Yeah.
And Battlestar Galactica, the first series, the original.
Look, I have a bit of a thing for Battlestar Galactica 1980. There was a third series that is not actually part of the canon. I love that. That's when the Cylons fight bushfires and stuff.
Oh, I'm going to check that one out.
Yeah. Oh, that they became socially conscious. What about you on the Doctor Who issue?
I'm a recent convert to the Doctor Who, so I'm 2005 series only.
Okay.
And so that only gives me a small number of doctors to not like, and they're all pretty good, but Christopher Eccleston was perhaps just a little wooden in his delivery throughout.
Okay. A lot of people think of him because he was only in there for 1 year, and a lot of people... I kind of liked him because he was a bit rough around the edges and seemed to like a bit of Biff. He had that sort of EastEnders touch to him.
And maybe that's part of it. He doesn't seem like the doctors that sort of followed him, the ones that... were more intellectual or philosophical, and he perhaps was a bit rough and tumble.
Yeah, and yet he was the one that kicked it off again, wasn't he?
He was, so all credit to him and the writers for that. It's been a great series since then.
And congratulations to you guys for putting such a great work into this effort. I realise it's a team effort for all the Canberra skeptics, and you did a great dinner last night, and it has been pointed out you had the great trick of selling off all your props. So you set up the dinner, you had to lug in, but you never had to lug out. You just had to wander off into the night.
And saves on clean-up too.
That's right. Yeah. How many Daleks did you eventually auction off last night?
The total was 8, yeah.
8, wow.
Yeah.
Well, you raised some good money, and what are you guys going to go to next year's convention, or are you just not even thinking about that since this one's not even over yet?
We've got a long time before we have to think about that, I think. I might, seeing how this has gone and not having to actually see too many of the lectures, I think I sort of missed out a little bit on that. So going to the Brisbane one, was it Brisbane?
Yeah.
Will be good.
Well, we appreciate your courage.
Yeah. Thank you.
But right now it's time to make a charge for that lunch table. See you all later. And we went into the secret corner, which is the secret corner because on one side they have some drawings of cat scat, and on that side they haven't quite finished the paintings they're doing yet. Who have we? There it is. And who have we got here?
Mike McRae.
Now, you just gave a great chat about alternative medicine. What were you angling at in it?
I guess primarily actually looking at alternative medicine as being a response, I guess, rather than just a pure belief system that comes out of nothing. Looking at medicine as actually being scientifically informed, but science being something that to many people represents a state authority. So we've been looking at conspiracy theories clearly throughout the Skeptic Convention, and conspiracy theories also being a response to a dominant system to say, I don't trust you, here's my alternative belief.
Look, I'm certainly on board with this. In fact, I've often said that a lot of the skeptics go after the science for people with the anti-vaxxers and that sort of thing. But in some ways, they're more like anti-capitalists. It's actually not so much the science they're suspicious of the capitalism and the industry behind it.
Absolutely. There's a correlation there where there's different value systems at play. So people have their values that inform various beliefs, and those values come into it regardless of whether it's believing in some alternative medicine or maybe to do with the environment, to do with their own position in the community. And often if your cultural group, so the group that you identify most with, if it feels as if by some means it's not, it's being disempowered, or it's being somehow suppressed in some way. So if there's oppression going on, then there's going to be a response to that. So where there's power, there's going to be that pushback. And often when it comes to alternative medicine, there is that pushback that says, I've had an experience with medicine that informs those values to say, I don't trust you, I don't believe in you in some way. Here is my subculture over here which empowers me. And so you'll actually identify with that. But there's something that's curious that goes on, and that is with the community. Science is clearly a legitimization. It is a power. And so while you're stepping back from it, at the same time you can't divorce yourself from it entirely, which is where we get pseudoscience and hybridization, language that actually sounds scientific because you kind of want to be identified, as if you've got some legitimacy, but you can't actually be part of that scientific culture as well, and so you'll retain those values on the other side.
You obviously studied many of the different alternative practices. What's your favourite as far as going, wow, that's out there?
In terms of weird stuff,
I'm a bit of a fan of Reiki, as Reiki has so many different variations, and you can even do it remotely over the phone sometimes.
Look, I've got a real interest in anything to do with vitalism, pretty much because vitalism being that there is some sort of essence in things that is non-materialistic.
Where does that go back to? Victorian or before?
Before that. So it was actually quite a legitimate science to begin with, in that initially when they were looking at the material universe, so being defined by laws and rules, there was a response to that which said you can't reduce things down to itty-bitty rules that define the universe. Things have much more of a nebulous concept, more meaning. So there was a response that said the more that you actually quantify things, the more that you actually count things in such a way, make up laws, the more you take away from it. You don't meaning, and which is true. I mean, if you look at science, you do quantify stuff, but you always have to come back in a way and kind of give it some sort of meaning as well.
And people like Rupert Sheldrake hopped onto this and gone, that was where science should have gone and it never did, because that's the kind of thing he says, that's where he reckons science goes wrong.
That's right. And you do get, there's nothing new in the Sheldrakes of the world. That's been something that's been around for centuries, in that the more that you reduce things down, the more you take away something from it. There was a naturalist in the 1700s by the name of du Buffon. Now, du Buffon was the first guy to come up with an encyclopedia. So he just wanted to write everything that was known at the time. He wanted all these books. But he thought maths was a useful thing, but it's not the be-all and end-all. And he opposed that. He said, look, maths actually takes away from stuff. And that was during a time when vitalism was becoming a big idea, because they wanted to find some force or some sort of rule that governed biology. So while you had Newton, who said, well, look at gravity. Gravity is in everything that has mass, and everything that has mass comes together thanks to this rule. I feign no hypothesis, don't know what it is, but it's a rule. Biologists wanted the same thing. And so, maybe this vitalism thing, but every time they looked at it, it robbed it of its meaning, because you'd find all these little rules that made biology quite complicated. So the vitalists actually became more of people who said, well, don't look at the rules, it's just a thing. And that's where you get things like homeopathy coming out in the end, in that homeopathy is all matter has some sort of vital essence to it, this vitalism. And if you can put it into water or some sort of diluent and dilute it right down, smack it a few times to get that vital essence out, what you're doing is you're pulling out, making it stronger, hence where homeopathy came from in concept. Now, a little bit after that, we came up with things like Avogadro's number. We started to understand more about how you can break matter down into atoms and smaller components. But initially with all that, the whole vitalism thing was actually quite scientific. It's just we've discarded it long since then.
So how do you argue how do you argue on the same level with homeopathy, because you're invoking the spirit of science that they don't really follow?
You don't. And that's really what it comes down to. It's probably one of the biggest questions I get asked often is how do you win over people? How do you actually convince them? You don't, you can't. Dr. Craig Cormick mentioned in his talk something quite interesting, and that is when it comes to people, you have to find shared values. We are social animals. We always listen to people who seem to identify with our identity in some way. So you have to identify in someone, what things do we already share? If you don't share science, find something else to discuss. And then as they slowly identify you as being a friend or as someone who is in part of their social group, more of those values will come across, and they may actually evolve over time. But there is no conversation you can have to sit down with a stranger to say, I'm going to convince you. So So if that's your goal, you're better off just having a chat about something that you do actually share. Sports, politics, art, whatever it is, and ignore the rest, because now you've actually set up in someone the idea that goes, that guy who was talking about art, we both liked art. Yeah, they were into science. And you've seeded just that little bit to say maybe we share a little bit more than just a love of something like art.
Is it worth trying the, well, it worked for me argument, which you often hear from people that take alternative cures?
Only if you actually share the same social group. Only if they already like you. If there's somebody there that you have an influence where you say, well, this worked for me. If you're a powerful person in their social group, they'll be influenced. If you're not, forget about it. It is not going to work on that level. We have to approach this culturally. We can't be individuals going out there changing minds. We have to operate on a level that says, first of all, you have to like me. First of all, you have to be part of my social group and share my identity. And then maybe we can discuss things, and over time, your beliefs will evolve. And I think the more that we do that, the more we build the cultural identity, rather than isolate and ostracize and say, you belong to that other group, you're an idiot who believes in different things. Then all you're doing is just pushing them into another subculture. That means you can't communicate.
Now, was it you that mentioned that Al Gore was perhaps possibly the worst spokesman for climate change you can have for various reasons?
No, that was Craig. But I mean, that's a good example of that, in that you've actually got someone who already belongs to one subculture saying, well, here's this other system. Those people who identify him as not being part of them are not going to listen. And we do that all the time. We'll go up to someone who is not part of our group and say, you're wrong. You don't believe in the same things I do. Here's where you should be right. We haven't got a hope. Whereas if you start with things where people are already agreeing with you, they already value the same things, and forget the part we have to convince them, slowly over time beliefs will actually change. We're never going to do it completely. We're not going to have a perfect society where everybody is going to be scientifically informed and sharing those values. And maybe we shouldn't. I mean, maybe there is strength in that diversity. But what we do need to do is try to monitor that people's decisions are being made with their own interests at heart. They want the best outcome. And that's always hard with medicine, because with medicine, people actually make choices that they don't want. People want to be healthy. When they make a choice that makes them unhealthy, where do we stand ethically? And I think that's where really we have to find a way of doing it that sort of brings people together rather than just dividing people into different cultures.
Here in Canberra, the topic's been sort of conspiracies all weekend. Now, is there one conspiracy that, despite the lack of evidence, you would find it rather good if it was true, or would you be tickled pink if it was actually real, a conspiracy?
Look, to be honest, I know absolutely nothing about the whole JFK conspiracy. My partner's American, and they had recently that Australian guy who's come out with the ballistics reports.
The Secret Service guy might have done it. Yeah.
That's right. To be honest, that kind of tweaked. I went, I've got no idea. And this is the difference. I went, that sounds plausible, but I know my limitations there. I know nothing about it. But I mentioned it to my partner, and she got a little bit offended. Being American, this is something to her that has a very deep cultural meaning. So for me to say, I wonder if there's something, and she's going, well, there's this Australian who's come out and rubbished our reports. She acted emotionally towards it. I still have no idea. Maybe it's something to read up on one day. I'm not sure. But that was something that tweaked me. I went, based on my ignorance, that actually sounds a little bit plausible. It sounds less like these other conspiracies that require a whole lot of people to keep a secret. This seemed like something that you could actually sweep under the rug and sound okay. But to be honest, as I said, I've got no idea.
And where can we find you online, or to find out more about the talk you just gave?
You could probably just follow me on Twitter. So it's Tribal Scientist.
Cool. Okay. Start a discussion, not an argument.
Absolutely. That's always it. Find the values you share first.
Well, all the crowd's rushing out. It's a wrap for 2013 Skeptics Convention. And, of course, you made the big announcement there, Richard, at the end, which got a huge round of applause, almost a standing ovation. What's the go for next year?
I just announced that I was leaving and everybody applauded. No, the announcement is the Australian Skeptics National Convention for 2014 will be in Sydney, Australia, on the weekend of the 29th and 30th of November. Special guests, the Skeptics Guide to the Universe and George Harab.
Wow. So, look, that's a third great convention in a row. And, of course, it had a wonderful feel of Canberra here. It's been a great venue. It's going to be hard to top the CSIRO.
It's a wonderful place. And look at all these people streaming out. They're delighted. They had a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. So, look, the people are streaming out. Joe, how was it for you this weekend? How was this very Canberra skeptical event for you?
It was wonderful. It was incredibly exhausting, and I got 3 hours sleep last night.
That means you've been doing some post-activities.
Yes, I went to the pub last night, actually.
That's great. Now, what do you think was the best talk today?
That's a very tough call, but I'm probably going to go with Patrick Stokes because I was looking forward to it so much.
And how do you feel about the excitement of next year with Skeptics Guide to the Universe and George Harab?
I barely have to travel, which means I don't really get much of a holiday, actually. But no, very cool, very exciting.
What do you think was the big highlight of the weekend, Don?
Well, I thought the whole thing was a highlight. My highlight, personally, Maynard, was the fact that last year, as you know, I was the convener. My highlight was that I could sit there and watch it all go by and relax totally.
That's right. You had to do nothing. Now, I've got to say, last year's convention in Melbourne had a slightly more a younger touch because of the young Melbourne skeptics. I thought that a slightly older crowd here, but a slightly more varied crowd than last year. Am I getting that wrong or not?
Well, as you can see, Maynard, there's a little bit of grey on the roof here, but I'm a young at heart sort of guy. So, no, what we really did aim very, very hard to get the young Australian skeptics there. We had the special lunch with Rebecca and DJ there to get them in, and I spoke with Jason Ball and a number of others, and we worked very hard to get the young ones because they're the future of skepticism.
That's true, and of course a lot of them are based in Melbourne too, and maybe not so many around the Canberra area.
Well, they all hang around together on social media anyway, so it doesn't really matter where they are. But look, getting back to this one, credit where credit's due. This is a fabulous location, the CSIRO Discovery Centre. It's
great internet connection here.
It is, particularly when it works, Maynard. Excellent.
Look, now you off to the anomalous psychology in the pub tonight?
Yes, purely for the anomalous content. Nothing else dragging me there at all, Maynard.
Okay, and your very favourite talk of the year. There must have been one talk this afternoon that got you going.
Well, I thought that Craig was from the CSIRO, as an old science communicator myself, and it turns out we have worked in the same place at slightly different times, and I thought his talk about science communication and the way that we need to reach out to people were very, very good. But Amanda DeVos, a number of other people, Paul Willis as well, really, when it's all said and done, skepticism, it's fine to sit around in halls and convention theatres and talk about skepticism, but ultimately we've got to get it out there into the masses, and that's a very difficult thing to do.
Look, we're here just making a quick getaway from the ANU car park. We think we've got the same car we came in, but frankly it doesn't matter. This one isn't too bad, is it?
It's not too bad at all.
Not too bad at all. Now, of course, Ian, what do you think was the highlight of the weekend for you there?
Well, firstly about the car. In quantum mechanics, the wave function of one electron is the same as the wave function for another. And if two electrons happen to collide, you can no longer distinguish which one was which. So if quantum mechanics applied on a larger scale, it wouldn't really matter which car we were in. It would all cars would be equivalent, you see.
I like that. Oh, look, we're already playing car tag with the other people on that. We've got the Rebutta car in front of us. Well, someone's got the corporate car, haven't they? Now, Richard Saunders, you'd be a little bit tired after all that's been going on this weekend.
I am. It was exhausting, but I mean, it was a big day on Friday getting down here, then the Friday evening events. Saturday was all full on, then the dinner, and then today's been really busy too. So we're four very tired but happy skeptics driving back to Sydney. And
once again, I want to thank the Skeptic Zone listeners for helping me be able to come here this weekend, and I hope that the interviews have lived up to what you wanted. Probably not, but hey, to you I say if they haven't. And it's time to head off to the Campbelltown Railway car park now, where, of course, tights are pants, and stretch denim rules forever.
The internet may be the information superhighway, but there is no promise that the information is factually correct. So when people use the internet to educate themselves, they are at risk of being misinformed and reaching false conclusions. But don't worry, there is a solution. Rebutta is a browser plugin which tells users when the web page they are currently viewing has been disputed elsewhere on the internet. With Rebutta installed, anytime you read a page making a claim of truth, you have immediate access to another page which explains why that claim is incorrect. So you not only get an opposing perspective and more information on the subject, but you get a direct demonstration of how to critically analyse the page you just read. Imagine a world where every internet user was able to critically reflect on the information that the internet presents to them. Because that is the internet that Rebutta and its community of volunteers are building. Go to rebutta.com, that's rbutr.com, install the plugin and see what you can do to help us bring about this revolution.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone, and once again, congratulations to Loretta Marron for that wonderful award of the Order of Australia. Now, before I go, my friends in Sydney, don't forget to come along to Sydney Skeptics in the Pub on Thursday, the 6th of February at the Crown Hotel. Our guest speaker is Rob Byrne from Rotary about ending polio. End Polio Now campaign. And Rotary do a wonderful job internationally in helping to bring this disease to hopefully a swift end. For more information, go to meetup.com/AustSkeptics. So those people in Sydney, please come along and hear what Rotary has to say about ending polio. Well, I better go and lie down for a week. Make sure I'm well rested and recovered for the next week's episode of The Skeptic Zone. Until then, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to The Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.